Hi, and welcome to Ward 13 with Jon Hopwood. And guess who's here? Matt Connerton.
I am here. Wherever I go, there I am. Yes.
And we are going to call my friend Lisa.
All right.
And we're going to ask her about a personal experience with immigration.
Oh, okay.
Lisa, how are you?
Hi, good.
Welcome to Ward 13 with Jon Hopwood. This is her second appearance. I
Oh.
don't know if you were on the show, Matt, where she appeared over a year ago about vaccinations.
No, I was not here for that.
Tom Massengale was on.
Ah, yes, I remember Tom.
Lisa, how are you?
Very good, very good. So,
Now, I've known
Good.
Lisa. Yeah, I've known Lisa for 30 years. We were stationed in the same army unit, the military intelligence unit, in West Germany.
Oh.
Now,
okay.
Lisa, you recently made a trip to the Vaterland, Deutschland, Germany, and
Yes.
why did you go to Germany recently?
well, my husband's sister has relocated from Syria to Germany with her 4 children.
Now, your
And,
your husband was born in Syria and raised in Syria?
Yes, he had Syrian citizenship before we married.
Okay. And have you been to Syria?
Yes, I've been to Syria 3 times.
When?
The last time we went was right before the rebellion, so it was 2010 was the last time I was there.
You know, I really enjoy Syrian bread with my Greek salad.
Now, Matt, you're being a Weisenheimer.
I just relate everything to food.
Honestly,
well,
though,
the Syrians like food a lot, so.
See?
honestly, that
See?
is how people relate.
It is.
Tell me what Americans know about Syria. It was a French colony, and it's anti-Israel, and the Assad family has run it since 1970.
Well, and of course, according to people of a certain ideology, lots of dangerous refugees come from there who are just waiting to get on a plane and get to America and start shooting up the place.
Lisa, is Syria full of dangerous refugees that just want to come to America to shoot up the place, like Matt just said?
No, if anything, they're just economic refugees who just want to have a better life.
And what's happened in Syria since? First of all, what do you call it? You call it the rebellion. Is that what your husband's family would call it, the rebellion?
You know, I don't really know what they call it. I just know that when it first happened in this country, that's what we were calling it. We were calling it the rebellion, and then we decided to support certain rebel groups, and it just got more complicated from there.
Now, the rebellion is against Assad, President Assad,
Yes,
who is a
yes,
dictator,
there was a rebellion against Assad, right.
whose father ruled Syria for over 30 years
Wow.
with an iron hand and kept Islamic fundamentalists in check
Right.
by basically killing them.
Yeah.
But, so what happened in Syria? So Syria, before the rebellion, it was a livable place. His family, they were content in Syria.
Yeah, Syria was very livable. Of all the Middle Eastern countries, this is what my husband always told me before I went there. He'd say, you know, in Syria, you don't see women walking around with headscarves all the time. I mean, people wear Western clothing. It's very secular. It's a secular country, and you know, back then it was one of the few Middle Eastern countries that was totally secular.
Which, like Turkey, because Ataturk kept Islamic fundamentalism in check. Right. So Syria and the Ba'athist Party in Iraq, Saddam Hussein, and then the Shah of Iran kept it in check.
Yeah.
Well, the Ba'ath Party was also, that's the party of Assad in Syria.
Right. It's kind of, they would call it a type of a socialist movement from the 50s based on Nasser, who became the dictator of Egypt when he overthrew King Farouk in 1953. And Nasser was a power unto himself, non-aligned movement. And
so what changed with the father to the son?
What spurred the rebellion, Lisa? First off, we know...
First question is what changed from father to son, and I remember very distinctly when that change took place, and everybody was so hopeful that things were going to loosen up in Syria, because, you know, when Assad the father was in power, people were not free to talk about politics. They could be, you know, thrown in jail, disappear, those sorts of things would happen, kind of like, you know, the old Soviet Union.
Yes.
And
or now.
Then the son came in, and everybody thought, oh, liberalization, this is going to be so good. He's Western educated, you know, his wife is Western educated, and it didn't happen. You know, the hopes weren't fulfilled. And then when the Arab Spring started, the Syrians thought, hey, Arab Spring, why can't we have it too? And then they started, you know, protesting against Assad, and he clamped down, and that was it.
To stay in power.
It was all downhill.
Well,
and I heard that it was his mother whispering in his ear, just telling him, you can't let this happen. You have to rule with an iron fist like your father did.
You didn't want to end up like Gaddafi or something.
Well, the tension when you're promoting democracy in the Middle East is that Islamic fundamentalism, with the huge population explosion, is very popular amongst the mass.
Yeah.
They look to that for some type of relief or some moral beacon. But many Islamic, the vintage of Islamic fundamentalists since Khomeini and Iran is towards a theocratic state. Whereas in Iran before that, there was a understanding that the mullahs there was a separation between church and state. And the person that would have been the most likely person to take the role that Khomeini won through the revolution was murdered by Gaddafi when he went to Libya as a stop to go to Italy to meet Iranian dissidents and was murdered. He was decoyed.
Okay.
And the thing was, the Shah, this could be a whole show, the Shah had his chance to murder Khomeini. Saddam Hussein offered to murder him because, you know, Shia, the religion, Iraq, there's no real border in religion.
Yeah.
But see, when you get to like Syria, if you're going to democratize, you are, like with Khomeini, you are empowering a element that could be extremely anti-democratic.
Right.
So, you know, the West, what do you do? What do you do when you decide to replace a dictator?
Right.
When you get rid of Saddam Hussein, you have anarchy.
He was a dictator, but he was our dictator.
Kept everything in check.
Kept Iran
so
at bay.
once this happened, Syria goes to hell, disintegrates, right, Lisa? Because the strong man is gone.
Well, yeah, and also the strong man is a religious minority.
Oh, he is?
Whereas the majority in Syria is Sunni Muslim. Although, I mean, they were secular mostly, at least when I was there.
That's
Hello?
right. Iraq is mostly Sunni, but Shia, you know, Saddam Hussein, they didn't really truck with religion, but they were Sunnis, and that is important to people.
Yeah, because Saddam didn't care. Like, he was very secular, right?
Well,
In
that
terms of-
was the Gaddafi from gone Nasser and them. They consider themselves socialists,
Yeah.
that's a term that was used from the 30s on by a wide variety of people.
Right, yeah.
So, but they're Ataturk, who the modernization of Turkey after the Ottoman Empire, created a secular state, which is under intense pressure now. That's
Yeah.
why they're never allowed into NATO. One of the reasons, because you don't want the fundamentalists coming to power in Turkey.
Yeah.
So it's quite a situation there in Syria. It's quite complex, isn't it, Lisa?
Yeah, it's really complex.
But what are the
Because
people?
now with all the different rebel groups, I mean, who do you support? How do you tell where your aid is going? How do you know if it's going where it's supposed to?
Yeah, that's why I'm someone who objects very much to our getting involved in these sectarian conflicts and whatnot. It only it backfires on us because you don't know, and then you end up in situations where, for example, in Iraq, where ISIS has been seen using military hardware that we supplied to the Iraqis. It's crazy.
But ISIL, one of my favorite things during the last election was sometime during the primary season, one ISIS group or anti-ISIS group supported by CIA was attacking an anti-ISIS group supported by the Department of Defense.
I remember that.
Doesn't that sum up the
It does.
the anarchy?
It
And when
does.
you take these dictators out, listen, Jimmy Carter really screwed up in Iran. And there's a
Yeah.
recent book about that came out, which is shorn of the propaganda of the 70s. It was a fascinating book to find out about Iranian society and that. And now Iran, we have a president that's threatening to go to war. Well, Iran destroyed Jimmy Carter's regime. We can
Yeah.
talk about that another time because it's a much more complex society than Americans are led to believe.
Right.
Like to become a mullah, you come up from the bootstraps. You get your power because the people give it to you.
Mm-hmm.
Like Khomeini.
Yeah.
And they are genuinely men because they are men of the people in their way.
Right.
But what's the human element like? What's it like to find your sister-in-law a refugee in Germany?
Well, I don't, I went after they've already been sponsored, so they have their own apartment now. But for this past year since last January, they've been in Germany, and they were living in a camp near Potsdam for the
Right.
first 5 months, and then they were moved to Brandenburg, where they are now.
East Germany,
And they
Prussia.
lived in a camp there also until they were chosen to be sponsored by the local church.
The Lutheran
And the
Church.
only reason they got sponsored is because they're not Muslim.
So they are Druze. Your relatives are Druze. Your sister-in-law.
Druze, yeah.
Druze, right.
Druze. It's a religious minority.
In Lebanon and Syria.
Yes. And also in Israel.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I was going to say I'm not familiar with that at all.
Well, the Druze, they fought Israel to a standstill in the 80s, so then they paid them to go after Muslim groups in Lebanon.
Okay.
They are descended from, because they have blonde hair and blue eyes, they're
Huh.
descended from the, what do we call it, the Crusaders. They just stayed behind, and
Yeah.
it's a religion. It'd be kind of like what Mormonism is to Christianity.
Okay.
Except
okay.
in Islam, they don't consider them Muslims, and they don't consider themselves Muslims. Too.
Interesting. Okay.
But,
Yeah. Muslims consider them heretics. for
heretics.
sure.
But of course, Muslims considered the Wahhabis, the House of Saud, as heretics. But until they controlled all the oil,
Yeah.
and then they have to deal with them.
Right. Right.
They're considered heretics too. But so, if your sister-in-law had been Muslim, she would not be in an apartment now with her 4 children. She'd still be in a refugee camp.
She'd still be in a camp.
So, unlike the press saying Merkel and the Germans are just rolling over and, bringing in Muslims by the boatload and the propaganda you hear, that's not really true, what we're hearing. That they
Oh,
might
no,
be refugees, but...
they're being strictly vetted.
Right.
They're all being vetted very thoroughly.
Yeah.
During the vetting crisis, so-called vetting crisis that the Republicans brought up during the presidential primaries, one found out that anyone from Syria was thoroughly vetted, and most of the refugees had a relationship with America, either through the military or intelligence or something.
Well, it takes up to 2 years typically, right?
Right. Yeah. So, what do you think about President Trump's order about the immigration from the 7 countries?
It's ridiculous, of course.
It's madness.
But I think it's probably a smokescreen. He wants to draw attention away from his real agenda pieces, like Bannon on the Security Council and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It makes us less safe too.
Right.
What Trump has done, it's made us less safe, not more. It's as though he's trying to prove, to say it very broadly to the Muslims of the world, that we really are anti-Muslim or bigoted toward these people.
Well, 2 things come to mind. Yeah. In the 90s, after Iraq acquired nuclear weapons, which they have, but the Clinton administration started a dialogue with them.
Yeah.
And not for the public consumption, although you could even, without having the sources or knowing how to find the information, you found out that the United States and Iran were talking to each other. And then when he created this coalition against terror, had to make a speech.
Right.
North Carolina, well, they might be terrorists, like they voted for Trump, right? North Korea, Iraq. Oh, we need a third country.
Oh, the axis
so they throw
of
in
evil.
Iran.
Yeah.
So that gets them angry again.
That was a terrible moment for
And
all kinds of reasons.
Everybody's talking about the new generation of Iranians. There's 70 million people. There was only 30 million in 79.
Yeah.
They'd like to, I'm sure, like Syrians, like Lisa, they would like to be like more Western, have a little more democracy, have access to this or that,
They like us.
And then suddenly
people.
you're demonizing them and you're taking them right back to the fundamentalists.
Yep.
So it's like disaster.
It was such a terrible moment.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's the same kind of self-inflicted wound.
Yeah, but we're talking about Steve Bannon, the Breitbart guy. That's what he does.
Yeah.
Is create like Dr. Goebbels.
Mm-hmm.
Like Lisa, they're going to have Trump announced the first few days in his presidency, he's going to publish a weekly list, crimes committed by immigrants. And what did Hitler do in Dr. Goebbels? Crimes committed by Jews published every week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anti-Semitism was very virulent in the 30s and 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
And now, I have family members who are Muslim, so I was talking to Lisa about it. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
My niece was a captain in the U.S. Army in Kosovo, and she fell in love with her interpreter, who was, military employee.
Oh,
and
wow.
she converted.
Oh, wow.
So when you go up to the VA and an employee is talking about making racist comments about Muslims right after the massacre up in Quebec.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I controlled my PTSD that day.
Yeah.
So, see, I'm getting better, huh? Do you have any final thoughts, Lisa, before we let you back to... What's it like in Los Angeles right now? What's the weather like?
Oh, a little rainy.
A little rainy.
No.
Yeah.
Too bad.
Not too bad.
Is it giving you the blues?
Such a shame.
What's that Mamas and Papas song? I could be in L.A.
I just wanted to say one thing.
Okay.
In Germany, the first refugees that came through got settled in West Germany.
Right.
And it's more liberal there. People are used to immigrants and stuff in Western Germany, and
yes.
And now the later ones got settled in Eastern Germany, and it's much there's much more xenophobia there.
Right, that was the former East Germany, the Democratic Republic of Germany, East Germany under the Soviet grip.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's much poorer than West Germany. When we were stationed there were guest workers from Turkey. So there were millions of them.
In Western Germany.
Right. And a Turk, mostly Muslim, they are, could be born in Germany, but you have no citizenship. So
I have a question about Turkey. At one time, wasn't Turkey wasn't it kind of half and half?
What?
Like 10 years ago, in terms of like half Muslim, half Christian.
No, you're thinking of Lebanon.
Am I?
20
Okay.
years ago.
Okay.
They were mostly Muslim, but Ataturk created a secular society that lasted 70 years. Our friend Karen, remember Karen went to Turkey in the mid-'80s, Lisa, and she told us that Ataturk, Kemal Ataturk, was on coins, and that anybody that would like put their hand on a coin or step on a coin or deface it would be, the people so revered him.
Huh.
Like maybe George Washington for the
Yeah.
first 20 or 30 years. Or Ronald Reagan amongst certain Republicans.
St. Reagan, yes.
Yeah, Lisa and I were in the military. He was our commander-in-chief when we used to listen to, remember Lisa? I don't remember you were there, but Dutch would give a press conference and he'd be speaking gibberish from an old 1939 Brass Bancroft movie. You once told me that hearing Dutch's voice, Reagan's voice, made you physically sick. But that's another story. Our disabled president. There's something.
You know, it's funny because Trump's voice has the same effect on me.
The same?
I think he has
Yeah.
on many people.
The same or worse?
Well, Lisa,
I have to say he's probably worse than Reagan.
well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming on. Let's get you on again with more notice.
Okay, take care.
All right,
Yeah.
it was nice to meet you, Lisa.
Yeah. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Well, that was interesting.
Hey, folks, Ward 13, hopefully next week we'll have our guest, Heather Saigan-Olette from Glesson, who's been here before. She couldn't make it because of the weather. And stick around for Matt Connerton, Unleashed.
Yes.
See you next week at Ward 13.
You're dinging.
John, can you call me back?